The Michael K. Show on Yes is brought to you by Untuck It. Shirts designed to be worn untucked. Shop now at untuckit.com.
Everybody, this is indeed the Michael K. Show. We thank you for joining us on this Wednesday, February 21st, 2024. Michael, Don, and Peter with you until 6:30. A lot of stuff to do, a lot of stuff to talk about. We start off with what could be concerning news out of Port St. Lucie. Senga throwing and felt some fatigue in his arm. He's going to be checked out by the Met people. And I'm going to be in the very positive position of being somebody to calm down Met fans' nerves. This happens in spring training. It just does. Now, it could end up being something big. In all likelihood, it's not going to be. He's your number one starter. You need him healthy. And just because, they shut him down because there was some soreness or some fatigue doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It happens in spring training all the time. I wonder why it does, because obviously you're throwing before you get on the mound in spring training, but something cropped up today that concerned them, and they shut him down. But I don't think it's the end of the world.
No, I don't know. Is it? Is it not? Obviously, when you're a Met fan, you're going to feel like, yeah, it is the end of the world, because everything seems to be the end of the world. But because he is your number one starter and your best hope of being competitive, you can't take any chances.
No,
so shut him down. He feels a little fatigue. All right, no big deal. This is what spring training is for. This is why starting pitchers and catchers show up early, because they've got to work ahead of everybody else. That's why you've been saying over the last couple of weeks, these free agents, these Boris clients that are sitting out waiting for a contract, that think they can just show up the week before the regular season starts and be ready for the beginning of the season, are going to hurt themselves. It's progress, and because everybody cares, it doesn't fly under the radar like it might have 30 years ago, when it would have been no big deal and he would have fought through it and not told anybody about the pain, and then something would happen later on. So I'm erring on the side of it not being a big deal. But Michael, it's not like they can afford to lose him. They can't afford to have any problems with him at all. It's not going to be a great season, most likely, to begin with. And if you lose your ace for any length of time, it's going to be epic.
How about that? I'll say this: it's not Diaz getting hurt in the World Series of whatever the hell it was called.
The World Series of Poker Baseball.
The World Series of Poker Baseball.
It was the World Baseball Classic.
The WBC. It's not that. We dealt with worse news last year if you're a Mets fan.
But that crippled them. This will hurt, too. He's their number one starter.
But this could be so many things. We're 6 weeks away.
That's why I'm saying don't
isn't someone crumbling on the mound.
Don't fret.
Don't fret. Don't cry.
But you can understand a Met fan worried, because these things do happen to them and to us. So I'm not going to get mad at a Met fan for being concerned about it, but it does make me feel better that people around baseball are saying that it's no big deal.
Now, I'm going to tell you this.
Go ahead.
And I'm going to ask you to get close to the speaker. But I really riled up Met fans, guys.
Why? I didn't notice.
Well, that argument that we had the other day about, my point was that the Mets' biggest advantage is the wallet of Cohen. Mm-hmm. And they have not they've taken that advantage out of play, as you mentioned, to build up for future years.
Right.
But this year, they've left a lot on the table that they could have done because of the money. And we never thought that was going to be an issue with Cohen. But, boy, did that really stirred up a hornet's nest with our good Met fans. How dare Yankee boy do that? I mean, would you like me to read some?
I would like to hear it. Yes.
Yeah, it's a very unhappy group of people.
All right, I want to hear it.
Okay,
because I want to see if I
could be staying too much.
Eddie Wilkowski.
Okay.
K is one step away from AM oblivion, where no one will be able to hear his crap over the static. He's a Yankee sycophant. When's the last time he criticized them? Who cares what he says about the Mets?
Okay.
David Vainchecker said, I'll be curious to see if Michael K. heaps praise on the Mets next offseason if and when they spend big. I mean, Have I praised the Mets? Many times.
Listen, I've been here with you every step of the way for the last going on 22 years. I've heard it all.
Then Chris Monty says that's what Kay wants the Mets to do so they don't steal Soto from his boys that are petrified of a luxury tax. Chris, you're so silly. I mean, you really think I'm doing the Yankee bidding so they could sign Soto? They're afraid of the luxury tax. Do you realize, Chris, and I'm talking softly so you really get it, do you realize that they're at the top luxury tax level right now, just with the Mets. So they're not petrified of the luxury tax. It looks like Cohen might be this year. That's why you're not signing anybody that could actually help you. That's why you don't have a DH. That's why you're probably a starting pitcher short. Another person, Jeff Cohen, his logo is Mr. Met. Kay is just doing his job as a Yankee propaganda voice.
Oh, no.
No Met fans take him seriously, and many Yankee fans as well.
Interesting.
Jeff, how's it working out for the K-ster?
Well, why do you bother?
Because it's just funny how you rile up a fan base. I have been behind the Mets so much, especially when they had Buck Showalter as manager. And I'm sorry, Don and I had a very spirited conversation about it. They are it would be like Nolan Ryan saying, "I'm not throwing my fastball. I'm just going to get you out with curves." The fastball the Mets have is Steve Cohen's wallet. They've gone away from that. It might pay off in the future.
I guess the reason, listen, Yankee fans or Met fans are going to go after you because you're the Yankee announcer.
Right.
I mean, the same thing would happen if Gary Cohen had a show and was critical of the Yankees. It would be he's Met boy, and the Yankee fans would all kill him. It's just it's the way of the world. Peter's right. You shouldn't let it bother you because obviously they've got an agenda. No, it doesn't bother me at all. It bothered
them.
It's got an agenda. But going back to the argument we had, I believe it was on Friday.
Mm-hmm. And the reason this has come up is that it got aggregated yesterday by awful announcing. So some people saw it.
So maybe they didn't hear it live, and they're reading about it. And I'm sure they cherry-picked quotes, Michael, and didn't hear or replay the entire conversation. The problem I had with you and the attitude that you had on Friday was that they don't have a plan. They have a plan. You may not agree with the plan, but they have a plan. And I'm hearing Met fans complain about this, too. Why don't they spend the money? On who? Who do you want them to spend money on?
Do you believe, honestly, they'd be better with you? And there's another thing that I'm not going to read every single silly tweet. Why don't the Yankees get these people? Because the Yankees right now are... Pacoda projects them at 94 wins. They don't really need to get these people. The Mets are projected at 80 wins.
But wait a minute. All right, but who cares about the Pacoda and all that stuff?
But that's what these guys deal with.
No, but the fact is that you're projected by the Pacoda to win 92 games, which may not win you the division, even though they have you with the most wins in the division.
Sure.
92 doesn't lock you in
not at all.
to anything. Certainly doesn't lock you into a championship. Your captain, Aaron Judge, believes there's going to be another move. You've said that there's still room for improvement.
Sure.
So I turned the mirror back on the Yankees. I was like, why aren't you going after Snell? Why aren't you going after Montgomery?
There's not an urgency for it.
Well, there's not an urgency.
There's an urgency with the Mets. The Mets are projected not to make the playoffs.
Why is there an urgency?
Because they're not going to make the playoffs.
But because their end game is to build something more tangible. This is where you get into trouble.
And that's a smart move.
See, this is
that's a smart move. Why can't you do both? Like the Dodgers.
But the Dodgers didn't do a thing last year. But they already had a very good team. Right. But so I'm supposed to, if I'm the Mets, spend a bunch of money. Just so I have to make the playoffs. This self-sense of urgency to be able to make the playoffs and possibly do damage to go after better free agents next year. I mean, you've admitted it makes sense to work in a budget because by just blowing up payroll, it could affect you international money, draft picks.
Absolutely.
So it is pretty shrewd to be fiscally responsible and not spend like a drunken sailor until it is time to do it. And they look at the free agents next year and say, that's the time to go nuts. Yeah, I can give Jordan Montgomery a 3-year contract. Do I believe he's worth the money for that 3-year contract? Is that somebody they want to be part of their rotation beyond this year? Maybe the answer from Stearns is no. Now, they can cosmetically do that to try to build some kind of fugazi run that may get them into the playoffs and may get people excited. But does it hurt them long term to now where they can't cash in on the better free agents? So they believe, and I agree with them, that they can be still competitive this year. I mean, there's talent there. You still have Lindor. They just gave Alvarez a contract. You still have Alonso, who's in a walk
Alvarez
year.
Not done yet.
But it seems like they're going to get done. They're talking. That Alonso's in a walk year, so they're happening. He's going to have a beast of a season. You've got a former National League batting champion on the roster. Nimmo's an outstanding player. They believe that Beatty can turn out to be. So this whole idea that it's going to go off the rails, I'm not 100% sure. But I think the plan is that when really matters. So, and you're more than entitled to disagree with that. But this idea that he doesn't care, this idea that they're being cheap, it's all part of a plan. Just like the Yankees have a plan. The Yankees have the money to sign Blake Snell to whatever. But they realize, I don't know if it's smart to just give him whatever. Give Jordan Montgomery whatever. So they're being smart, and the Mets are trying to be smart. And they're not going to succumb to the pressure of, I got to make the playoffs this year. I think that's when franchises get in trouble, when they feel like they got to put all their eggs in one basket to impress the fans. The fans want to see this team become great for a long, sustained period of time. And I think they are willing, as long as there's a plan, that if this ends up being an off season, that's better than having a belief that you're going to win 110 games and win a World Series and have it snatched from you like it was last year.
But you don't have to do that, because the Diamondbacks made the playoffs the last day at 84 wins, and they ended up going to the World Series.
And you don't think the Mets can get to 84 wins? They're projected to win 80. So you're telling me you can't win 4 or 5 more games than expected and sneak into the postseason?
They can, but you could probably make that more of a sure thing if you actually added people.
So I'll ask again.
Don't you think J.D. Martinez is better than Vientos as a DH?
And they still might do that. J.D. Martinez is still there.
Right.
And he is not a pitcher that needs a full spring training. He's a veteran.
Right.
Who the Dodgers signed for $10 million last year. In the same way, the Mets might be able to get him and say, all right, we'll wait, and then we'll gobble him up. We'll see. He's still out there.
But what you're saying, and what I disagree with, and Met fans seem to think, I want the Mets to spend so that they can't get Soto next year. Listen,
silly.
I could give a crap, okay?
Right.
The Yankees have to do their business. If they want to keep Soto, they'll keep Soto. But my point is that you can do both. Because you say the Mets have a plan. The plan's different than it was 2 years ago. So their plan has pivoted completely in the opposite way.
That's what good organizations do when things don't go well.
But they didn't go terribly. They went terribly off the rails last year. As Peter said, Edwin Diaz getting hurt did not help matters. Did not help matters at all. I think the whole team crashed mentally over it, and then they ended up. But the year before, they won 101 games.
Right.
So they weren't a terrible team. You can actually sign a player that helps you now and still sign Soto next year.
I mean, they still could sign J.D. Martinez.
I don't know.
But who else?
But before all of this happened, I know they went after Yamamoto, because as the Yankees did and the Dodgers did.
And then because Yamamoto's part of a long-term plan. But anybody that's going to help them win this year, you're asking to sign a one-year contract. And players don't sign one-year contracts in December and January. They usually sign them in the 11th hour in February when they think they're not going to have a contract to sign.
Then maybe they would get J.D. Martinez. My only disagreement, I agree fundamentally everything you're saying, is that the man has $20 billion. He can do both. Now, he has already crossed the Rubicon about affecting draft picks. Everything he signs now, it's double the money. Same thing with the Yankees, same thing with the Dodgers, because they're over that 4th threshold. It doubles the money. So if you give somebody $30 million a year, you're essentially spending $60 million a year. But that's a bet they made by getting Scherzer and getting Verlander, and then they pivoted and they traded them and ate a lot of the salary and they bettered their farm system. All of that is good.
Right.
But to say, okay, I love the people that go, well, they're building something here, so we'll sacrifice this year. Hey, everybody that says that, you could be dead next year. Don't you want to see something good this year?
Oh, well, but you still could.
Right, but that's a big.
So Justin Turner is all of a sudden going to move the needle?
It moves it more than Mark Vientos.
Well, but Mark Vientos is somebody that they believe with playing time can become a good player. So when you sign these one-year contracts to a Turner or to a J.D. Martinez, now, I'm not saying that they won't do that or they couldn't do that, but does it come at the expense of, if I go out and get a third baseman for a one-year deal, now Beatty doesn't play. Maybe they want Beatty to play to see, am I going to have to go find a third baseman, or do I already have a affordable third baseman that with playing time can blossom into a really good player?
Isn't it less?
Vientos was thrown to the wolves last year. You'd have to admit that.
Well, so was Beatty.
And now with a whole season with less pressure to say, all right, go up there and prove to me that you could be a long-term answer to the team. Isn't that better than signing a one-year contract? Now my future star doesn't play. I got to hit the pause button.
Sometimes you have to believe what a player shows you, because Alvarez thrown to the Wolves and he did great.
Well, not right away.
But
they threw him to the Wolves in that playoff run. Right. And I don't know.
The playoff run was, he was a baby then.
Right.
Last year he did very well.
But last year he did, he certainly did very well. Because, but what if the year before was last year? And Alvarez got called up at the end of the season, went 0 for 8 with 7 strikeouts.
Right.
Didn't do anything. And they go, we need a catcher. Sign a catcher to a one-year deal. And instead of Alvarez blossoming like he did last year, he sits and watches a veteran take his position for the 1 year. They're hoping that maybe a full season with Beatty.
But Beatty had a full season, and he went down and didn't perform well.
Yeah, and there's an issue there. I agree. But you don't think Vientos, maybe with a full year, can blossom into a nice player?
Well,
I don't know. Maybe he will, maybe he won't.
That's what they're betting on. That's what they're betting on. But let me ask you just straight out: Are you content with this Met team? Are you content with you? Are you excited about this season?
Well, listen, there's a bunch of different. I'm excited about the long-term prospects of the team, and it certainly has come at the expense of my excitement in 2024.
Right.
But if the alternative is they plug in a bunch of one-year deals, now I've got a chance of having an exciting season. But now I'm not sure that 2025 is going to be special. I'd rather do it this way.
But you're not sure 2025
No, but and I'm not sure if they signed all of these guys to the deals that they'd be great. Mm-hmm. We don't know what the Yankees are going to be this year. You're always betting on hope no matter what you do.
But you do have, there are statistical projections.
But who's
going to be good and who's going to be bad? Sometimes they're wrong.
To throw money at being presentable in 2024 to me is not a plan.
But I don't think that affects you in the future. You seem to think it does.
But certainly giving more than 1 year contracts would, and that's and who have they passed on?
Well,
that A would sign a 1 year deal, and also B clearly be better than the alternative.
Forget about 1 year deal. I happen to be. I don't think that Jordan Montgomery, Sandy Koufax by any stretch of the imagination. But he's a good, solid 3 or 4 starter. If you sign him to a 4-year deal, the Mets you think are going to be competitive in 25. You're not burying yourself. You got a pitcher that could slide in as a 3rd or 4th starter for the next 4 years.
Right, but I don't know. Does Stearns thinks he's a long-term answer? Is he worth the money that he's asking?
Obviously
so the answer would be no. Then it's no, and then we'll see what free agents are available to the people that he is. You make it seem like you've got to be competitive in 2024. You have to do whatever you can to be competitive. They have a huge fan base. I think most of the fans are on board with this slow burn, and I do believe there's talent. Peter, they have Lindor, they have Alonso, they have Alvarez. If Senga's healthy, he finished 7th in the Cy Young last year. It's not like they're bereft of talent. No. There's things to watch here. Nimmo's a nice player. McNeil's a really good player. So if things come together, this could be a fun year.
Agreed.
And also, or maybe it'll be a disaster year, but everything's based upon expectations. Last year was a disaster because your expectations were through the roof. If they duplicate last year with 0 expectations, it won't hurt nearly as much. So the disagreement I have with Michael, I don't see why you have to be competitive in 2024.
Well, I think this is a fundamental misunderstanding between a Yankee fan and a Met fan. A Met fan is actually somewhat satisfied. I think in the same way that I'm satisfied with what the Commanders are doing because they got the new ownership, I think Mets fans are still like, the Wilpons are gone. We're going to see this thing out and see how it goes. I don't think they have this expectation that it's now or bust that Yankee fans, and in this case Michael, seem to have every single season. And I would argue, how's that working out for you? Is having those expectations every year that we need to make moves and go out and grabs, has it led to a championship any sooner?
It's led to you being over 500 for 35 straight years. That's a big deal.
But has that made the fans
listen, the fans, as we know, are irrational. But there are some Met fans, and one of them called in the other day, that can't be thrown with this because they thought that when Cohen was here, he was going to be Steinbrenner Jr., and he was going to do everything that George did and spend and spend and spend. And he did for a while. And he did. And it didn't work out. They fired Buck Showalter. They brought in a new GM. And now they're going in a whole different direction. That does not accentuate his money.
But let me explain something to you, because we've got a team in our town that kind of went through what you're hoping the Mets will do this year. and that's the New York Giants. Now, it wasn't from spending a ton of money, but they ended up having that great year unexpectedly in 2022 when 9-7-1 won a playoff game on the road. It ended up being just a flare and part of the process of what they were trying to go through. But then what ended up happening? Well, now you got to give Daniel Jones a big contract. He helped us go to the playoffs. So sometimes when you put your eggs in the one basket for the one season, then what did you do? That now that guy that you signed to a one-year contract, well, you got to bring him back. Peter, you got to bring, if you sign J.D. Martinez to a one-year contract and he bats .350 and hits, 35 home runs, well, you got to bring him back. We went to the playoffs with him last year. So you see sometimes those Fugazi runs end up being fool's gold.
Oh, I know it well.
Have your plan, and we'll see if it ends up working. And is this free agent, you've got Cohen with billions of dollars spilling out of his pocket at a flea market. I'd rather have that money spilling out of his pocket at Nordstrom's. And that's what next year's free agency class is.
Let's go to the phone, see what you think. Let's go to Lovell in Lavelle in Yonkers. I'm sorry, Lavelle. How you doing?
It's all right. It's Lavelle. Listen, Michael, I'm a Yankee fan, but most importantly, I'm Carmi. I'm a Michael K fan. All right? But I got to be honest. Ever since that day that they traded Scherzer, and you were going on this tear about how, Steve Cohen, I thought he was so rich, it was kind of embarrassing to me as a fan of yours. Because it just seemed like you were, a little jealous of the move. Because think about it. That's a boss rich guy move. To say, this team isn't working, I'm going to go ahead and trade it. I'm going to fill back up my... No other owner would eat that money. Hal Steinbrenner would not have eaten that money. That's not a businessman move. That's a boss move.
Well, I mean, I didn't have a problem with him. I didn't have a problem with him doing that. Level. I said
you disagreed with
I
it, though.
disagreed because you're giving up on the season. I don't believe in giving up on seasons. I just don't. But, I mean, I have no problem with him doing it. That was a big-time move. I'm going to eat all this money to make my farm system better.
Now,
a lot of owners can't do that.
Now we get into the fundamental disagreement that we're having here. You're not willing to take a knee on a season.
Never.
I am if I believe it's for the long-term good of the franchise. And listen, I don't believe in tanking. That's not what I'm saying. I want to be competitive every year.
But they essentially tanked when they made those moves. Now, it wouldn't have worked out anyway because they ended up both getting hurt. But that you were tanking.
No, but I think sometimes...
The final 2 months of the season, you tanked.
But it wasn't strategic like we were doing it for a draft pick. They looked at it and say, is this going to result into anything? And they ended up being right. And then the objective was to be able to replenish their farm system, which was an objective of Cohen when he bought the team. So there was an opportunity there, and they took it. That happens at the trade deadline. Mike, I don't know how you feel about it, Peter, because you're kind of you've seen this argument all the time. No, from a tanking standpoint. When you get to the trade deadline and you decide to sell, that's not tanking to me. That just makes sense. Tanking to me is purposely losing. But when you get to the trade deadline and you say, we don't have any chance here, like the Commanders did when they made the deals that they made at the deadline, that's not tanking. That's shrewd business. And I think that's what the Mets did last year with Scherzer and Verlander. It made sense.
Agreed.
And now what happens this year? Neither of them are going to be ready for opening day. It ended up being the right move.
It did.
But that's where because you're the Yankee guy that believes every season you need to finish above 500 and have a chance to win. But I want to be the Yankee someday. I want to be able to be good for years. And sometimes you've got to look at it and say, all right, we got to do a slow burn here to get there and not just throw a bunch of money around into maybe what could end up being bad contracts to hurt our future plans.
Phil Sanchez writes, born and raised in Queens, been a Mets fan my whole life. I have never been less excited for a season. I would actually be more excited if they did a full rebuild. They're wasting the best years of Lindor, Alonso, and Nimmo.
Well, Alonso, what are they going to do with him? Or what do you care about the best years of Alonso? If he walks in free agency and you don't re-sign him, what does it matter?
Right.
Yeah, the Alonso part doesn't matter at this point.
But have those guys complained?
You have 8 more years.
Well,
They're not going to complain.
What do you mean they're not going to complain? Athletes complain all the time.
But Lindor is really close with Cohen and his wife.
But
He's not going to complain.
Isn't Devers complaining in Boston?
Yeah, well, I mean, but Boston, the Mets are a monolith. Boston's an embarrassment what they've done.
Listen, I think if Lindor was unhappy, you'd hear him be unhappy.
But maybe maybe Lindor's on board with this.
Maybe he's bought in.
He's a young enough player. He's got a long contract here. He's tight with the owner. He maybe and to Don's point, thinks they can be a somewhat competitive team this year. Who knows? I said this a million times, I know. Did anybody have the Orioles pegged for 100 games last year? You just don't know what's going to happen in a given season.
Listen, I hate that they fired Showalter. I thought it was not necessary. But Carlos Mendoza is a really good baseball man. You got yourself a good manager.
And you know what? You talk about pivoting. If they're in this at the deadline, I think that they'll be aggressive and try to pivot again. Through.
Right. All right, so a lot of stuff there. 1-800-919-3776. It's Would You Wednesday, so that's always exciting. Met fans are really hating me, Yankee boy, so I'm going to lean into it.
What else is
new? I've told you that for years.
No, I mean, listen.
Met fans don't like you.
But here's the thing that bothers me. See if you follow me. I say these things totally what I think is objective. This is how I feel.
I know that.
And the Met fans also, I didn't read that stuff. He never rips the Yankees. Really? You should be on the other end of phone calls when I rip the Yankees.
Right.
I rip the Yankees an awful lot for people that actually, it's somebody who's the voice of the Yankees for 32 years. So you're all a bunch of creeps, okay? Every single one of you that thinks that. You don't have ears, you don't have brains, you don't know what you're talking about. I kill everybody. Equal opportunity slayer.
You know what this is, Peter? This is leaning into it. He's leaning into the skid.
This is what he should have been doing.
All right, Don, let's talk about Mazda.
In 2024,
Welcome back to the show. 1-800-919-3776 is Michael, Don, and Peter until 6:30. Rangers won again last night. Don on the call, 8 straight, and a great performance by Shesty.
he was very good.
Yep.
He had a couple of saves, Michael, on Sagan.
Like you read about.
The highlight. Third period, 2-1 game. That's big boy stuff. And Dallas is a really, really good team. That team could win the Stanley Cup. And no letdown after the Stadium Series stuff. So I thought that was terrific. And now they play the Devils tomorrow. I'll be at the Rock for that.
Well, we have the call of that save.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
Sagan wins the draw clean. Heston a couple of moves. Rashad gets deflected by Sagan. Save by Shesterkin. Rebound by Sagan. Another save by Shesterkin. And he gets the whistle.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Love it. Love everything about you.
That was a fun game. Well, thank you. I love everything about you.
No, not everything.
I can really see the hair coming in there, too. I think I take back everything I said.
About what?
That this isn't going to happen. It's going to happen.
I got to tell you, you know what? Losing a bet should hurt. You've always said that. I feel like a hobo. I went to a store today. I went to a CVS. I had to pick up a prescription. They looked at me like I was a shoplifter.
When you can shave the
like
rest
a
of
person
your
without
face,
a home.
You can shave the rest of your face. You just have to sculpt the pusic and leave that unshaven. But you can.
Yeah, but I figure I'll grow it out and then it will end up with the pusic. This isn't bad for 4 days, right?
No, that's not bad at all for 4 days. But I think it would look better and less noticeable if you shaved everything but the pusic. Got to get Peter's opinion on this.
Oh, I mean,
I know it's disgusting,
but
I was going to say I think this is a big win for us because Don never seemed to think this was going to happen, and I think this is going to be hideous for you.
It's going to be awful.
Yeah, this is
the way I dreamed of you having to grow a Gallagher.
Yeah, this is.
But you never lose.
No, I'm a big winner. This is already very bad.
Oh, it's awful. But I was just telling Don, and you stepped away. I feel like a hobo.
But wouldn't he be
walked
better?
into CVS, people were moving away from me.
Yeah, no, I get it. I would move away.
Well, shouldn't he shave like the rest of his face? Do you think they would look better? And just keep the pusic unshaven?
He doesn't have a lot beyond the pusic anyway. It's mostly in that area.
No, there's a lot.
I mean, up here,
side,
I guess. Yeah. Maybe. I think it's going to be Don. I think you're talking about.
Not what you want.
No, it's not good either way. This is punishment. We're getting.
This is losing the bet.
I'm curious to see what the audience feels, but I feel like we're getting into an actual punishment here.
This is a punishment.
We just need Flip to keep him away from the camera. We don't need some emergency hot stove.
The first game. Well, if they end up signing Snell, there might be an emergency hot stove.
Well, then we have to have a conversation with Flip on the air that he's going to have to allow you to look that way during the broadcast.
And we have we have our first game is Sunday, but we don't do on cameras for spring training games, so that's not a concern.
And can't you font it And just
Michael lost a bet.
Michael lost a bet just to explain away for the people.
Yeah, but there are a lot of people that are watching Yankee games that have no idea about the show and have no idea.
Well,
about
that's why I think it should be fonded. Michael lost a bet. This is why he's wearing this hair the way that he is.
Let's go to the phone. Steve in Connecticut. Steven.
Hey, what's up, boys?
How you doing?
Good. Just real quick for my point. I know we want to delete from our memories that Richard called, but he had a different delivery. Very Seinfeld-like. And why is it called spring training?
You know, it's not a bad point. Yeah, I think you really found something there.
And
what was this call? I heard
his
about
call was, why do they call it spring training? It's not spring. It should be winter training. Winter play, whatever. Winter's training. We'll hear that at 6.
Well, that was something. Wow.
Regarding the conversation with Matt Yankee deal, Mike, you're way off base and you're contradicting yourself a bit. I love you. I hate the garbage about, they're fans. That's what it stands for, fanatic. That we can't be objective because we don't collect a paycheck with our opinions. Mike, when did the Knicks start getting a feel like they were on the right path? When they stopped doing the Stevie Francises, the Antonio McDyess, the Mets, that was Isaiah. They could have made some quick fixes. I know LeBron didn't want to come there, Durant would, but there was other options. It finally felt right and got healthy when they.
But Steve, I'm not. We can continue to go back and forth, but I'm not contradicting myself. A cap sport is a different story. The beauty of Steve Cohen is he's richer than everybody else. You can spend more than anybody else. And I'm not saying he's cheap. He has a $300 million payroll, but when you look at the product that's going to be on the field, that's not a $300 million product.
Yeah, but like Don said, who should they go out and get? I mean, the Knicks. I hate to keep bringing it back to the Knicks, but that's when it finally felt healthy. For you to say, get someone to take a knee on a season. Sometimes no one takes a knee on a season except teams that totally tank. But there's a.
Are you a Met fan, Steve? Are you a Met fan?
No, that's the point. I'm a fellow Yankee boy.
Oh, but so you don't think? But I mean, if Met fans were honest and they put away their disdain for me, they're not that excited about this year.
I'm a Met fan. I'm not feigning interest or just kind of come up with the other side for good radio. I'm a Met fan. And I'm excited about the long-term health of this franchise. That's what I'm excited about. I want to be the Braves. I want to be the Astros. I want to be a perennial winner like the Mets were in the 80s. And just because Steve Cohen's got money doesn't guarantee anything. The Orioles had money back in the 90s. What did it get them? A bunch of 90-plus win seasons and not even a World Series appearance. The Dodgers, all the money that they've spent, one Fugazi COVID championship since 1988. Mm-hmm. All right? I would like to be able to not just it be about money, but having prospects and sustain injuries and be able to survive because I can call guys up that can rake just like the guys that were starting
but the Dodgers,
and be in that position.
Dodgers finish first every year. That's not I mean, they're not Yankee fans. They're pretty happy with that. They want to win a championship.
No, but
when you build something sustainable, you can finish first every year.
But they also have, they had great prospects and they had a farm system. I mean, you want to be able to build it up. The Wilpons left Cohen with very little. And he spent right away thinking like you, I got to make a splash. So let's give Scherzer money. Let's give Lindor money. Let's give Verlander money. It didn't work. And now he's brought in a good baseball person, and now they can kind of build. And I was just thinking about it during the break. Last year, they were derailed by injuries, and you said Diaz is coming back.
Right.
Senga's got another year under his belt. I mean, you've got a potential all-star at catcher. You've got an all-star at first. You've got a potential all-star at second. You've got a perennial all-star at shortstop. You just gave money to your center fielder. They're not. Do they have a championship caliber team? No. But why can't I go in there and look at a team that can finish above 500 with 3 wild cards, be alive in September?
Let's go to David in Little Falls.
It's too late.
Hey, David.
Good afternoon, fellas.
How you doing?
Doing good. Mike, I want to agree with you. I'm a frustrated Met fan, and I know Don's a good fan. But, Don, we're tired of just being content hanging around. When our new owner came in, we were all fired up to win now. 3 to 5 year plan. And now we're told, no. We're going to change, move the goalposts. We got to slow this thing down. And it's frustrating. And I'm tired of being close and no cigar.
Who do you want?
The 2000 playing.
Who have they missed out on? Who did you want to see them sign?
Don, I just want to win.
So do I. But I also want to win and win and win some more. I mean, who do you want to sign that was going to instantly make them a contender for a championship this offseason? They tried to go after Yamamoto. It didn't work out. They had no shot at Ohtani. So who? But I mean, you want to win. They actually spent money. It didn't work. And they won 101 games. And the other thing about the 101 games, Michael, they got blown away by the Braves like they were flat-footed in September and then got wasted by the Padres. So they won 101 games, but the way it ended told you that maybe they weren't as good as their record indicated they were. So I want to be able to build something long term. That caller's frustrated. So am I. But do you think signing a few ancillary deals to make them competitive this year is going to help the long-term health of the franchise?
But the one thing that I think of that I'm a little dubious. Well, they're saving the money because the free agent market next year is going to be great. You know what? Both the Yankees and the Mets thought they were getting Yamamoto. They didn't. So you can see Soto's going to be a free agent. Max Fried's going to be a free agent. Walker Buehler's going to be a free agent. You might not get any of them. Just because you have the most money, it showed with Yamamoto doesn't mean you get it. That's a bad plan.
But all the more reason.
Now, if the plan is to build up the farm system, that's a different story. But that's not going to pay off with a championship in 25.
No, but there's going to be a lot of really good free agents, Soto among them, where you want to make sure that you're in a position that when the ante gets continually raised, that you can hang.
But he can hang with anybody. That's my point.
I understand that, but
swings it around.
So that's the only way I could be competitive. Have a $400 million payroll, outspend everybody else. Why can't I put together a really good baseball team that makes shrewd moves and actually builds a farm system and doesn't have to spend money on top of money? Well, so I can only buy my championships. That's the only way. It's funny how the other sports, all of them very successful, all of them very popular, have a salary cap where you need a shrewd general manager and make the right decisions. But baseball, I can just go to the MLB store, buy all my best players and win a championship. Like, that's the only way to do it?
That's what the Dodgers did this offseason. They went to the store.
Yeah, but
they got all the best players.
And with all the money that they had, did they spend any money last year?
No.
JD Martinez, that was it. Why? So even with all their
because they wanted to reset, but the Mets aren't resetting. The Dodgers got under the threshold. That allowed them to do what they wanted to do. The Mets haven't reset because they're being weighed down by paying Verlander and Scherzer's salaries.
And they don't want to be weighed down any further unless there's a really good deal that can come along that's 1 year.
Are they going to reset next year, or are they going to spend? They're going to go over the cap?
Well, then we're going to see, but I'm sure. But 2025 seems to be where they're at.
Let's go to John in Kansas City. John.
There, Michael. Thanks for taking the call.
I'm
a Mets fan who just happens to be out here in Kansas City. But my question is, I see both points of view from you and Don. They're both very good points of view, but is the canary in the coal mine really going to be Pete Alonso here and how they're pursuing him this year? Because it seems right now that with David Stearns not really having talked to him very much, I'm wondering if they're not going to pursue him that hard and there's a good chance that he goes in free agency, then what really is the level of competition that the Mets are going to be putting forward in 2025? I mean,
I think, John, to just defend the other side, if you lose Pete Alonso, you probably spend whatever you have to spend to get Soto or another great free agent that's out there. I just think that what they've done, and let's see if it pays off. Interesting strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it works out. They have decided we're going to be fiscally responsible. Good for them. But as I said, you're taking away Nolan Ryan's fastball. So there's a certain amount of money you want to pay Pete Alonso.
Right.
And that's it. And then after that, you move on, like the Yankees did with Snell. We offered you this. You want more? We're out. We're out. Right. So if you're going to be fiscally responsible, that means across the board. Are you going to be fiscally responsible for everybody? You weren't fiscally responsible with Scherzer and Verlander.
No,
that was crazy.
Right. So then that was a mistake, and they pivoted. I don't know why you always feel, Michael, when you make a mistake that the only option is to double down. Why can't you admit you made a mistake and move on and do something different? And obviously, there's something not to like about Pete Alonso that they don't want to sit there and give him $50 million a year. Okay. And I just because I happen to be a billionaire doesn't mean I have to pay the billionaire tax and overpay for everybody. I don't think Pete Alonso's worth $50 million a year. But I'm not even sure he's worth 40.
You do. He's not. He's not going to get it. But you do realize that it's Cohen that moved the goal lines. By blowing past 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, and gave Scherzer 43.5 and the same thing to Verlander. So you have, if you look at his payroll, he's not cheap at all. I'm not saying he's cheap. It's over $300 million, but you got to be honest with you. This is not a $300 million team. You look at the Dodgers, that's a $300 million
team. Again, I don't understand. So you make a mistake, that means you have to continue to make the same mistake. That was also before Stearns.
Right.
And now Stearns probably comes in and can be his conscience and say, listen, Steve, that was a mistake. If I were here, I would have advised you not to get Verlander and Scherzer.
Probably what he said.
So isn't that smart rather than to continue to die by the sins you committed a couple of years ago?
I think David Stern is smart. David Stearns is smart. I think he was really short-sighted, not even talking to Showalter. That showed me a little bit of a dent in the armor. And he never won anything in Milwaukee. I know he had a low payroll, and they made the playoffs, never won anything. So let's see him win something. Because now, like Andrew Friedman, he was with the Tampa Bay Rays. And when he went to the Dodgers, he brought along all the smarts from the Rays and spent a lot of money. Let's see if Stearns could do both. Because it seems like he's running the Mets fiscally responsibly, like he had to for Mark Attanasio with the Brewers. That's not you don't have to do that with the Mets because of Steve Cohen.
I've got a question to ask you on this topic.
Okay.
When we come back.
It's would you? So you want to save it till 4? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
It's worth saving till 4. Just remind me because I'll forget.
All right. Make your move and rise up to Mazda from Beirut.